Welcome to Coffee to Go, where we center ourselves in the scriptures, seasons, and holy days of the Christian tradition. I'm Karin Peter, and I'm here with Blake Smith, and we welcome you on the journey. So we are still in ordinary time, that period of time between Pentecost and the end of the Christian year, and then Advent will begin a new cycle. So where are we this week? And we are still in Genesis. We are still with Joseph, the son that was sold to the traveling caravan by his brothers. So, Blake?
All right. So we're going to jump a few chapters. And this week we are in the 45th chapter, the first through the 15th verse, where Joseph is reconciling with his brothers, as hard to believe as that may be for some. So let's see how Joseph gets it right here. Then Joseph could no longer control himself before all those who stood by him, and he cried out, "Send everyone away from me." So no one stayed with him when Joseph made himself known to his brothers. And he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard it, and the household of Pharaoh heard it. Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?" But his brothers could not answer him, so dismayed were they at his presence. Then Joseph said to his brothers, "Come closer to me." And they came closer. He said, "I am your brother Joseph, whom you sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed or angry with yourselves because you sold me here, for God sent me before you to preserve life. For the famine has been in the land these 2 years, and there are 5 more years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvest. God sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant on earth, and to keep alive for you many survivors. So it was not you who sent me here, but God. He has made me a father to Pharaoh, and the Lord of all his house, and ruler over all the land of Egypt. Hurry and go to my father and say to him, 'Thus says your son Joseph, God has made me Lord of all Egypt. Come down to me, do not delay. You shall settle in the land of Goshen, and you shall be near me, you and your children's children, as well as your flocks, your herds, and all that you have. I will provide for you there, since there are 5 more years of famine to come, so that you and your household and all that you have will not come to poverty. And now your eyes and the eyes of my brother Benjamin see that it is my own mouth that speaks to you. You must tell my father how greatly I am honored in Egypt and all that you have seen. Hurry and bring my father down here." Then he fell upon his brother Benjamin's neck and wept, while Benjamin wept upon his neck. And he kissed all his brothers and wept upon them. And after that, his brothers talked with him. So why does this matter? Boy, I tell you, I don't know about you, Karin, but as I read it, there's so many ways to interpret this passage and to read this passage. I mean, for good and bad, I just found myself even caught up as I was reading. But anyway, from a literary perspective, Joseph is kind of the bridge that gets the people to Egypt. We've kind of been talking about this for a couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. But here's the other thing about the story that's important to remember. Sometimes when things are bad or things look dark or gloomy, somehow, and then when they start out bad and then they turn out for the best, we have a tendency to say, "Oh, it was God's plan all along. It was God's plan that I would suffer and have this horrible stuff happen to me. But look what happened in the end. God really loves me." I mean, that's that first way of reading this passage that can be so unhelpful and dangerous, spiritually abusive, even as we think about all the things that are going on in our world. And I find myself sometimes thinking this, boy, well, it's easy for Joseph to say this after the fact.
Yeah.
Oh, look how blessed I am. It was God that sent me here, not you. I bet he wasn't thinking that when he first went into slavery, right?
I bet he wasn't. Yeah.
But we do that. And in fact, Joseph does that thing in his own story as we go along. We'll see more of that. But what kind of God does that? We have to ask ourselves that question.
Mhm.
In our tradition, we don't follow that line of thinking. I mean, what kind of God would make people suffer in order to qualify to receive redemption or blessing or grace and mercy and all of that?
Mhm.
And what kind of God would allow awful things to happen just so we'd be grateful for a blessing, you
Yeah.
know, or that we would love God more because
Yeah.
God showed mercy on us? What happens when there is no blessing?
Oh, that's
What happens when
yeah.
there's no good result? Where's
Yeah.
God then, right?
Yeah. See, then it's like, oh God, where are you? You left me alone. No, God promises we'll never be alone. And we kind of equate God's presence with being blessed, right? And God's
Yeah.
absence when the blessing doesn't come. It's like that isn't that isn't how it works.
And not only do we feel blessed, but we feel blessed because we're good. We're obviously blessed
Yeah.
because we were good and deserved it,
Or
right?
or special, like God is
Yeah.
showing favoritism in some way and blessing me because the person next to me didn't get a blessing when they were sick. You know, I did. So I must somehow be favored by God. Or maybe I just pray better. Maybe. I don't know. But we do kind of go there. We don't mean to, but
Right.
really, when we say things like this, that's kind of what's happening.
Yeah. We say things because we're trying to make sense of it ourselves. And
Which
that's
is what they were doing, right? The
exactly.
writers of the narrative. They're trying to make sense of what happened, and that would be a reasonable way to look at it.
Yeah. So what's important here is that we have to look at what the story says, but we can't stop at just what the story says.
Mhm.
We also have to think about how it influences this kind of romanticized version of divine interaction.
Right.
We don't want to reduce divine blessing to a reward for enduring difficulty
Mhm.
or as a gift because we're favored or special. Um, the problem is that when we do this, we're doing what Jacob did, and we're setting ourselves up as a favored one. And the only way you can be a favored one is if someone else is not. And that's the side of it. So when we're sitting in a pew with someone, or we're standing in line at the grocery store and we're thinking, oh, I'm blessed because of this. Especially if we're speaking it out loud and the person next to us or in our hearing has had a similar experience, prayed just as hard and not had a blessing.
Yeah.
What message does that send? So it's important to note that the takeaway happens at the end. And in this case, the true blessing here is that reconciliation and restoring of relationships took
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
That Joseph and his brothers found that healing reconciliation and came back together. They were reunited. It's kind of like the story of the prodigal son, with the son comes home and the father's just so glad to have him
Yep.
there, that everything is forgotten. So one of the things that I thought as I was reading is, can you imagine the brothers with their, first of all, oh my gosh, he's still alive. We are so in trouble. Not only is
Dad's
he
gonna
alive,
kill
he's in a
us.
great place of power. And we're coming to ask for a favor. Oh,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know. So, anyway. All right. Well, some questions we might ask ourselves this week. In the midst of adversity, how difficult would it be for me to transition from lament, like asking the question, why is this happening to me, into God is with me. I am not alone in this.
Yeah.
So looking at the positive assurance of God's presence with us versus why me?
Yeah. Yeah. I learned that when my son died. It was like, why did this happen to our family? And then I had to stop and think, why wouldn't it? Happens to other families.
Yeah. Yeah. Doesn't make it any easier.
You know?
But yeah. Second question, do I consider myself more quote unquote worthy to receive blessing than others? And finally, what relationships do I have that are in need of reconciliation? And, you might look at this one and go, that was pretty horrible what the brothers did to Joseph. And we might think similarly of a relationship that we have, but what joy might be experienced if we could come to reconciliation.
All righty. So this week, as we try to kind of live with this reconciliatory scripture, let's be people who share blessings. And you can do it however works for you. You might want to write them out on little cards and hand them out to people randomly, or you might want to simply say them, people at work. May your project go well, or may all your interactions today be affirming, or may you be filled with hope today. Those kinds. They may sound a little bit trite. You probably can write better blessings than I can, I'm sure. But Blake and I have complete faith in you that you will manage it and be a person that shares blessings. In fact, we'll bless you with this statement. May all your blessings be well received.
There you go. There you go. I went to a reunion this summer that put up basically a row. It was a row. It wasn't basically a rope. It was a rope, but it was and clothespins and paper there. And each clothespin had a person's name that was at camp, and you could throughout the week go up and just put a blessing.
Oh, nice.
Person. And it was nice. It was kind of, you could see people walking by and looking to see if there was something on their clothespin. And then I'd find myself wanting to go, okay, I got to go secretively write something because I know they're checking. And
yeah.
So anyway, it was a neat idea. It was a neat idea. Our blessing today comes from A Bit Much. It was written by Lindsay Rush, and it's called Cracks of Light. I'm so grateful that bad days are often followed by good ones, that sometimes while it's raining, the sun makes a little cameo, that time really does heal, and in the meantime, sleep helps, that our dogs can tell when we need extra comfort, and that when the worst case scenario takes us by surprise, so does our own strength.
Amen.
All right. Well, that wraps it up again for another episode here at Coffee to Go. We hope you'll join us next time at Coffee to Go for the next part of our journey through the liturgical seasons and holy days of the Christian tradition.